Chapter 1. The Whispering Docks. The fog lay thick over the Rotterdam docks that December evening, drifting like pale ghosts between the warehouses and moored ships. Lamps glowed faintly along the wharf, their yellow halos swallowed by the mist. The air carried a mingled scent of saltwater coal smoke and the distant tang of spices from cargo bound for the East Indies. At the end of Pier 7, a small, impeccably dressed figure stood quite still, his silhouette outlined against the dim glow of a lamppost. His bowler hat, angled with mathematical precision, remained untouched by the moisture collecting in the air. Hercule Poirot did not care for fog. "Mon Dieu," he muttered, taking out a spotless handkerchief to brush an invisible speck from his sleeve. "This Rotterdam, so industrious, so efficient, and yet one cannot see even one's own moustaches." Beside him, Captain Jacob van der Meer of the Rotterdam Harbour Police gave a hearty laugh, breath-forming clouds. "The fog is part of our charm, Monsieur Poirot. The sea brings it, and the sea takes it away." "Ah, but I did not come to admire the meteorology," Poirot replied dryly. "You said the matter was urgent, and when a Dutch policeman says that, I listen." Van der Meer's expression sobered. "A man is missing, not vanished from a street or a hotel, but from a ship. The SS Vriendschap docked an hour ago. One of the cabin passengers, a Mr. Bernard Alders, did not disembark." Poirot raised a brow. "People frequently prefer to stay on board." "Not," Van der Meer said quietly. "When their luggage is placed neatly on the pier, their passport stamped, and their cabin found empty." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Empty? No trace of him?" "Nothing, except," the captain hesitated, "except his cabin door was locked from the inside." Poirot stopped walking. His figure, diminutive though it was, seemed to grow still and alert like a hunting cat. Locked from the inside, but the man himself gone. He tapped his fingertips together. "This becomes interesting." They approached the Vriendschap, an elegant white vessel with dark windows reflecting the lamplight. Fog curled around its hull like grasping fingers. A steward in a navy coat rushed down the gangplank as they arrived. "Captain, thank heavens, and this is—" "Monsieur Hercule Poirot," Van der Meer said proudly. "From Belgium, the famous detective." The steward's eyes widened. "Ah, then perhaps you can help us understand the impossible." Poirot twitched his moustache. "The impossible is only the possible that one has failed to understand." They boarded the ship and were guided to cabin 14 on the upper deck. Poirot's eyes swept every detail: the polished brass railing, the scuffed floorboards, a faint scent of cigar smoke lingering in the corridor. The steward unlocked the door. The cabin was neat, impeccably arranged. A folded blanket, an unused water jug, a single suitcase placed by the desk as if waiting to be carried ashore. Nothing out of place, except Poirot bent down. A small porcelain dish lay on the carpet, shattered into 3 pieces. "What is this?" Poirot asked. "A soap dish, monsieur," the steward answered. Poirot murmured, "People do not typically break such an object silently." Van der Meer nodded. None of the passengers reported noise. Poirot circled the cabin slowly, touching nothing but observing everything. His gaze settled on the porthole. He walked to it, then stopped a foot away, leaning forward without touching the glass. "Captain," he said softly, "come look." Van der Meer joined him, frowning. "I see nothing." Poirot stepped aside politely. The captain peered again, then he saw it. A faint smear, almost invisible, along the rim of the porthole latch. A smear that looked like it was made by a gloved hand, dragging. "Someone touched this from the inside," Van der Meer murmured. "Oui," Poirot said, But look closely. Do you see the angle of the smear?" He gently indicated the direction without touching it. Vandermeer's eyes widened. "The smear goes downwards." "Exactly," Poirot said, "as though someone were being pulled out, feet first, through the porthole." The steward gasped. "But, monsieur, the porthole is far too small for a man." Poirot gave the faintest smile. "For most men, yes, but for a man who is determined, or terrified." He glanced around again, then pursed his lips thoughtfully. No sign of struggle, no blood, no overturned objects, and yet a broken dish and a mysterious smear. Curious, most curious. He turned slowly to face them both, his little grey cells beginning to warm. "But tell me, Captain," Poirot asked, "what was the occupation of Mr. Bernard Alders?" Vandermeer's voice dropped to a whisper. "He was a clerk, harmless, quiet, worked for a trading company." "Which company?" "One involved in diamonds." Poirot froze, just for a second. Then, smoothly, he folded his hands behind his back. "Captain Vandermeer," he said with measured calm, "I believe this disappearance may be part of something much bigger." "How big?" the captain asked uneasily. Poirot looked out through the porthole at the fog-shrouded harbour. "Big enough," he said softly, "that Rotterdam itself is holding its breath." The fog outside shifted, and somewhere in the distance a ship's horn wailed. A lonely, trembling sound that echoed like a warning. Poirot turned back toward the neat, silent cabin. "Let us begin," he said. "The riddle awaits." The fog thickened around the SS Vriendschap, muffling sounds and blurring outlines, as if the ship were suspended between the known world and some shadowed realm where secrets breathed. Poirot stood on deck beneath a dim lantern, his hands neatly clasped behind him, his gaze sweeping the harbour with calm intentness. "Captain Vandermeer," Poirot said, "before we descend into the maze, we must first understand the players." The captain nodded. 3 passengers reported interactions with Mr. Alders during the voyage. I have arranged for them to be assembled in the lounge. Poirot's moustaches twitched approvingly. "Excellent. One does not chase the truth blindly. Instead, one brings it politely to one's sitting room." They made their way to the first-class lounge, a warm, wood-panelled room lit by brass sconces and furnished with deep blue armchairs. A crackling fireplace added a touch of comfort, though the tension in the air was unmistakable. 3 individuals rose as Poirot and the captain entered. Vandermeer cleared his throat. "Monsieur Poirot, allow me to introduce the passengers who last saw Mr. Bernard Alders alive." Poirot nodded courteously. "Mesdames et messieurs, I thank you for your presence. I wish only to understand what has occurred. Nothing more." The elegant widow. A dignified woman in her 50s stepped forward. She wore a dark green dress, pearls, and an expression of carefully controlled anxiety. "I am Mrs. Agatha Bramsfield," she said. "Mr. Alders was seated beside me at dinner last night. A polite man, quiet, nervous, I think." "Nervous?" Poirot prompted gently. "How so, madame?" "He kept glancing over his shoulder," Mrs. Bramsfield replied, "as though expecting someone, and he barely touched his food." Poirot nodded. "Did he speak of his reasons for travel?" "Only that business often brought him to Antwerp and Rotterdam. Nothing unusual." "Merci, madame." The Dutch scholar next came a tall, bespectacled young man, clutching a leather satchel to his chest, as though it held his life's work. "Professor Léon Vermeer," he introduced himself nervously. "I teach mathematics at Leiden University." Poirot smiled reassuringly. "Ah, a man after my own heart. The numbers, they do not lie. Yes, well." Vermeer pushed his spectacles up his nose. "Mr. Alders spoke with me about combinatorics. He seemed fascinated by patterns." "Patterns," Poirot murmured. "How intriguing for a shipping clerk." Vermeer hesitated. He also asked me a peculiar question. Poirot leaned forward slightly. "And what was this question, monsieur?" "He asked," Vermeer said, lowering his voice, "if a sequence of numbers could hide information that only someone who knew the correct method could reveal." Poirot went very still. "Did he show you such a sequence?" "No, he only asked in theory." Poirot thanked him softly and moved on. The man with the black gloves. The third passenger stood apart from the others. A lean man, impeccably dressed, with a severe expression and gloved hands clasped behind his back. He gave a stiff nod. "Eric Van Holt," he said curtly, "importer of machinery." Poirot's gaze drifted to the gloves. "You suffered an injury, monsieur?" "No," Van Holt replied sharply. "I simply dislike dirt. Ship